Hey everybody, this is Mike with Free-Roaming Hiker, and in this video I am sharing with you 8 things that I learned the hard way after completing the Arizona Trail. Just so you know, I do have a whole AZT section up on my website at freeroaminghiker.com. I've got the link down in the description below so you can check that out and discover all kinds of other useful things regarding the Arizona Trail. So without further ado, let's jump right in. My first mistake was my socks, and it was actually this pair of socks that I bought at REI. They're an expedition weight pair of socks that are great for where I live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming through the winters. And I bought them with the mindset thinking the extra padding would add more comfort to my feet, especially with all the walking I'd be doing. Technically, I wasn't wrong. What I neglected to take into account, though, is that my feet were not airing out. Instead, they were trapped in a cocoon of their own sweat and literally drowning and suffocating. Sounds gross? You should have seen them after I took the socks off for the first time a few weeks later. After just a couple hundred miles, my feet were screaming in pain every day. I told a friend that I had made on the trail about the pain I was feeling, and she wanted to see my feet and how they were doing. So when I took my socks off, my feet were literally green and blue from being oversaturated. Thankfully, she had an extra pair of thinner socks that she let me use and insisted that I let them breathe every now and then and take my shoes and socks off. So definitely don't go with thicker socks because your feet are going to need to breathe. And even though you are in a dry desert, thicker socks will keep all the moisture trapped in there. So go with something lighter, like a thin sock or even a mid-weight sock. But this also leads into the second lesson I learned. When you're taking a break to get more water or you're just resting on the trail or having a snack, take your shoes and socks off and let your feet breathe, regardless of your sock weight. Your feet will thank you. You're putting them through a lot, and to feel some fresh air will go a long way with your feet. Third, I neglected to take into account just how high my metabolism would skyrocket. I knew I'd be hungrier, so when I was doing all my mail drops, I packed an extra granola bar or so for each day. In actuality, what I should have been doing was packing an extra meal for each day. This had the unfortunate effect of forcing me to rush more than I wanted to on the trail, and there were even a couple of times where I ran out of food before reaching the next mail drop. So if you're doing mail drops, I would recommend around mile 200, 250 or so, start planning for an extra meal for each day around that point because you will be a lot hungrier than you're anticipating. Yes, it is more weight, but it's worth it to not be in such a rush. 4, I wish I had brought a regular Sawyer water filter rather than a Sawyer squeeze. Yes, it is a few more ounces, but I would have gladly traded that weight to be able to relax every time I needed water instead of continuing to work my body when other people were resting. Of course, save as much weight as you can, but also balance that out with convenience. Because of this, I never felt like I was actually resting on the trail until I lied down at the end of the day. Meanwhile, a friend was sprawled out at water sources in the shade with her eyes closed while her water filter did all the work. I was busy straining and squeezing liter after liter through the Sawyer squeeze. And that's not to say it's a bad water filter. It does a great job and I loved it, but I just didn't like that I had to continue working when I could have been relaxing. So go easy on yourself. Get the regular Sawyer or something similar rather than something that makes you work for your water. Speaking of water, number 5, do not skimp on it. Stay hydrated throughout the day. By mile 300 or so, I was certainly drinking plenty of water as you should in the desert, but I wouldn't say I was staying overly hydrated. So out of nowhere one morning, I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. It was so intense I couldn't even buckle the waist strap of my pack. I immediately assumed that it was something kidney related because it was in that area, and like I said, I was drinking plenty of water, but I wasn't staying thoroughly hydrated. Fortunately, it was only a half mile to the next water source. Once I got there, I dropped an electrolyte tablet into a liter of water that I had just filtered and I chugged it immediately. Luckily, and I mean very luckily, the pain vanished within seconds. From that point on, I never gambled with hydration, and neither should you. No matter where I was on the trail, I stopped and drank as soon as I felt I needed it. And as the guidebook recommends, from that point on, I never left a water source thirsty. Do not screw around with your hydration out there. Never leave a water source without completely hydrating, and always drink whenever you need it. Number 6, test your rain gear and make sure it works. You won't need it often, but you will need it at some point. Though my rain jacket was decent, it was getting older, and as a result, it didn't keep out moisture that well. Over the course of the nearly 2 months that I was on the Arizona Trail, I experienced a few minor showers, which didn't really result to much, but then there was one completely rain-soaked day, as well as 2 major blizzards that both turned to a pretty wet snow. Needless to say, when you're cold and drenched and the low is going to be in the 30s, maybe even the 20s, The last thing you want to do is set up a tent knowing your clothes are not going to dry out. So if you need to, buy a new and well-insulated rain jacket. It is worth it. Number 7, if you're sleeping on an air insulated pad, make sure you bring some kind of light foam pad or a durable tarp to put underneath the air pad. I completely overlooked this and wound up struggling with holes in my pad throughout the entire hike. This is another case where it's worth a few extra ounces for comfort and peace of mind. Nearly everywhere you go, the ground will be rocky. You'll need to put some kind of padding underneath your pad if it is an inflatable pad to keep it from popping, because otherwise it will pop more than once. And finally, number 8, and this didn't really affect me so much, but I heard it is a practice that's on the rise, and it's really one you want to avoid. Do not expect trail angels. Part of the adventure and the satisfaction in completing a trail like this is knowing that you did it yourself with everything you need on your back, and that's it. In addition, no one you encounter on the trail is under any obligation to give you anything at all. Some will do it out of the kindness of their hearts. Others will do it because they just want to feel like they're contributing to your success. But no one is required to give you anything you need to succeed, and you really shouldn't go that unprepared into the wilderness expecting food handouts from people. That's your job from day one. If you can't accept that, then don't attempt the trail. Reacting with entitlement gives thru-hikers everywhere a bad reputation, and it taints the overall image of people that try to do hikes like that. The Arizona Trail or any other thru-hike like this is a test of your abilities and your mental strength, and if you go into it expecting help along the way, you're already setting yourself up for failure. Do not ruin the image of thru-hikers. Be prepared to complete the trail 100% on your own. Not only will it help the public's perception of thru-hikers, but you'll also feel much more immensely rewarded in your accomplishment once you reach the end. Finishing a thru hike like this and knowing you could have done it all with or without the kindness of strangers is a personal satisfaction and accomplishment few people these days ever feel in their entire lives. Don't cheat yourself out of that experience. So those are 8 things that I learned after completing the Arizona Trail, and I hope that helps you get through your experience. Just a reminder, I've got a whole section on my website at freeroaminghiker.com that covers my entire experience along the AZT. There's blog posts from every day that I wrote at the end of each day. There's a map of my route and even photo galleries. The link is in the description if you'd like to check that out. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Any other questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And thank you for watching, and happy trails.